Tennessee. Our guest this morning, Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchison. We want to talk to you now about the decision that came down from the Supreme Court, essentially saying term limits are in place. That's the reason come Wednesday you will be leaving this position, which you have held for 17 years now. You had said prior to that you felt confident, that you were adamant that this would not apply to you. That decision comes down. What was your reaction?
Well, when the decision didn't come back by Thanksgiving last fall, I didn't think that it was going to be in our favor. Because if you followed the interpretation of the law from Chancellor Weaver, that's fairly easy to write, and maybe they wanted to wait till the elections were over with, not to impact them in any way. So the longer it went, the more that I felt that it somehow it would affect the constitutional officers. We have now been given a government that no one voted on in 1988 when we voted for charter form of government. Because when we voted for charter form of government, I was a lieutenant here at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff nor any of the other countywide constitutional officers, it was known then that they were not going to be under this government. So when we voted on that, we voted with that fact in place. Well, that's now changed by the Supreme Court, and they are the highest court, as I said before when I was interviewed when it first went to the Supreme Court. And I've been a law enforcement officer for 33 years. I have spent 33 years enforcing the law, and they are the law. I mean, when the Supreme Court rules, it is the law.
It's the final word.
It's the final word, and I'm going to honor that. Of course I would, and I'm not going to argue one way or another as whether I would agree or disagree. To me, as a policeman, it's the law. I'm going to enforce that. That's why you haven't heard much out of me. It is the law. What they say is the law.
Your last two elections were close. Was there a message to you from the voters, given just how close those two races were?
They were much closer. If you look at 1998, my election in 1998, I was the highest vote. I retained the highest votes and received the highest votes and of any elected official. I won by 80% in 1998. In the fall of 1998, I was met by an FBI agent, and we've discussed this before on Inside Tennessee. I've met by an FBI agent that informed me that there were some lawyers talking about suing me out of business, using the courts to try to get me out of business or out of the sheriff's office. And I laughed at it. I said, well, there's no way they can do that. And then the next year, the first lawsuit was filed, and then the same lawyer filed 63 more lawsuits. So then I started seeing exactly what was planned. And if you look at those things, you look at what happened right before the elections. You'd have an attorney standing in front of the building holding a check up for $500,000 and said, where's the money? Well, the money was never missing. But until the election was over with, none of that was clarified. And it was all done to impact me and in the election, and it did. Some people bought it. Some people believe exactly what they read, and none of that's ever cleared up until after elections are over with. And then it's never cleared up with the same impact as the shock value on the front end of where's the $500,000.
Let's talk about the person, the attorney, Herb Monsieur. There is obviously a contentious relationship. Talk to me a little bit more about that relationship. What do you think of Mr. Monsieur?
Well, I don't think it is somewhat personal between him to me. I've never sued him, and I'm leaving this office next Wednesday with never suing anyone. I'm the one that's been sued all of those times, not me suing anyone else. And everyone's like, well, he's always in litigation with someone. No, I'm defending myself always. And I will defend this department. It's a great department. And if you look at that, it has been contentious, and it's been very hard to put up with. But he's not only suing me. He's continuing to sue the government. Everyone's term limited. That's what he wanted. He wanted everyone. Now he's continuing to sue time and time again. In my opinion, he's an anarchist. And that's exactly the way he enjoys being.
Should Randy Tyree be the next sheriff of Knox County?
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's been retired for years. He needs to stay retired. He worked for a very short period of time as a special officer with the Knoxville Police Department while he was going to law school. Worked for a little bit right after it, and been out of law enforcement longer than I've been in it. And we don't need anyone that has been out of law enforcement for a long period of time. It's not the same when I started in the mid-'70s, and he was out of it prior to me ever starting. One of the problems with term limits on the office of sheriff and some of the professional offices is it may in the future. And one of the reasons that the state legislature did not want term limits on the office of sheriff is it will tend to politicize and bring people that want to be political running for the office rather than professional law enforcement officers running for that seat.
So who do you think should be sheriff in Knox County then? Who will you recommend?
Well, I have not called any of the commissioners, and I have faith in the county commission. I've worked close with them for a long time, and I have faith in them. And it's important when you pick a county commissioner, because when you pick a county commissioner, one of the things you're picking is you're giving that individual the authority to make these appointments when there's an open seat. And everybody's now like, well, why does the commission get to do that? That's one of the things that they do. That's why it's important to decide who the commissioner is and make sure you get a good commissioner, because sometimes their decisions are extremely important. But I have faith in the commission that they will choose someone that will continue to take this department direction it's been going, and I would hope that they use at least someone from this department that knows this department.
Now, the talk is that you would like to see J.J. Jones, who is part of your department, as the next sheriff. Is that indeed the case?
Well, here's what I did. There were three of my chiefs, assistant chiefs, and my chief deputy that was very much interested in it. And they all started calling the commissioners. And then I found out about that. And my recommendation, and I told them, I said, I'm not going to get involved in this. It's solely up to county commission. I'm not going to pick the phone up and call and start asking them to vote for one or the other. My advice to you all is to get in a room and you decide on one candidate. Because if you start splitting up those commissioners and making it hard on them, someone from the outside could walk in. And this department doesn't need someone right now on the outside coming in and changing everything in a time when our whole government is vulnerable right now.
So real quickly before we go to break, so in that meeting then was it decided J.J. was the man?
They did. They decided that, and I was not in on that meeting. I would not be a part of it. I told them the things that they should consider while making their choice, and that's who they decided. And I would ask commission to appoint someone from this department.
All right, we need to take another quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Inside Tennessee. We are back this Sunday morning on Inside Tennessee. Our guest, Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchison. Just a few more days left in office, and we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your past, your present, and your future. Thanks again. We left talking about J.J. Jones and how, as a group, you explained the folks in your department have come together and said, we support this man. Let's talk about your relationship with J.J. He was a part of your fold for a long time. Apparently issues, he left and went to KPD, but since has come back into the fold. Talk about this relationship. How were you able to mend fences, and what led to it?
Well, he did leave. J.J. came out, when I was a lieutenant, J.J. came out on my patrol shift.
Right.
And so, I've known him ever since he came out as a patrolman, and he literally has worked for me. While I was a lieutenant for many, many years, and I promoted him up to chief of detectives, and I had some problems out of him during a period of time when he was going through a divorce, and he left during that same time. Since then, we've seen the same JJ that I knew from before, that is very capable, that cares about this agency, and this is where his heart is. And I've seen that come back to him, and so I brought him back a couple years ago, and he's done a good job since.
Let's get back to you now. My understanding is that come July, you would be provided a pension of, my understanding, $80,000.